I took a bit of an unplanned break, and I really can't stress how unplanned it was, but life, man. Life was just doing its thing, I guess.
When life gives you lemons, make mojitos.
And even though I'm a little late to the party, there was no way I was gonna pass up talking about this absolute masterpiece. So, Spider Man Across the Spider-Verse is the sequel to the incredible, the phenomenal, the amazing Spider Man Into the Spider-Verse from 2018. This time around, following Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy as they go on a journey through the Spider-Verse in hopes of stopping this new threat known as the Spot. And it's on this journey where Miles meets Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, who leads a gigantic team of spider people known as the Spider Society. And of course, things are always so much more than they seem, and everything starts to turn upside down. Now, something that has remained a permanent topic when talking about the Spider-Verse films has been the animation. The visuals alone in that movie were breathtaking. And it really changed the game on how animation could be used, both visually but also to tell a story. It was incredible at the time, and of course, to no surprise, this movie continues that. But just when I thought 2018 Spider-Verse couldn't be topped, this movie does. With the animation of the characters themselves and how some of their color palettes change throughout the movie. Like Gwen Stacy's, her color palette seems to change depending on her mood, and even the environment around her seems to change. And now the animation of the characters themselves aren't necessarily pushing to be realistic, but they're still so detailed. In one scene in particular where Miles and Gwen were sitting upside down on a building, you can see gravity doing its thing. Like their cheeks were pressed up and their eyebrows were raised, indicating that they are in fact upside down. The movie didn't even need to show that level of detail. But the fact that they did, there's just so much to appreciate. Now, one thing about this movie is that in some ways it almost feels equally as much as a Gwen Stacy film as it does a Miles Morales film, in some sense. Like, you spend a lot more time with Gwen Stacy in this movie than you did with her in the previous film. But I thought in this movie it worked really well. Because Gwen Stacy is already a character we all love. And to explore more of this version of the character, it was something I personally wanted to see. I'm glad we did. And now the star of the movie is still Miles Morales. And it definitely feels that way no matter what. This movie found ways to explore many different things without taking away from Miles at all. And it's all done brilliantly. Also, a good chunk of this movie, I'd say so more so in the first half, is more focused on the family dynamic and personal side to Miles. And that to me felt really intriguing because the weight of everything Miles is facing is felt. It really gave these characters much more layers and depth. Because put all the Spider-Man stuff aside, and Miles Morales is still a really interesting character. And his whole arc with his family is a crucial part of his story. It's a definitive part of his journey, and the movie really shines a light on that. And I don't really need to say this, but this movie is packed with a ton of Spider-Man. All of them great in their own right, but I gotta say, the biggest standout was Hobby, aka Spider-Punk. Daniel Kaluuya is great in everything he's in. So it's absolutely no surprise he crushed this role. Spider-Punk is to this movie what Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir was in Into the Spider-Verse. Just a cool standout that steals every scene he's in. And I also thought Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara worked really well. He too was a standout. Again, Oscar Isaac being someone who's just incredible in everything he's in as well. He crushes this role, and Miguel O'Hara himself is just brutal and relentless in the best way. Now, something this movie did that kind of reminded me of something James Gunn did in the Suicide Squad, which granted is something James Gunn does really well in general. It's give us characters who on paper are lame, but on the screen are just executed really well. The true villain of this movie is the Spot. And even at first in the movie, it's really hard to take him serious. He feels like he's going to be one of those characters that's just one and done. Like the first time he faces Miles is going to be the last. Because there's no way such a lame character could ever come back, right? But no, he actually ends up serving as a much more serious threat. And ends up becoming much more than we expected him to be. Things start to turn sideways in a really bad way, and it's his fault. The way this movie takes a character like the Spot and makes him such a high level threat is beyond mind blowing to me. But that's just something this movie does. It really does take a lot of incredible imagination and stirs that up into this movie that's visually breathtaking with artistic animation, all topped off with some seriously rich storytelling. It's everything great that you would want from any film, honestly. An incredible story that's engaging, stunning visuals, fun action sequences, and an overall execution that is just phenomenal. I just realized I didn't even mention every actor. Because you already know Shamik Moore as Miles Morales, Haley Steinfeld as Gwen Stacy, Brian Tyree Henry as Jefferson Morales, Luna Lauren Velez as Rayo Morales, Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker. I mean, I can keep going on, but they're all perfect in these roles. And I can't really imagine anyone else voicing them in these movies. Now, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is just everything you could ever want, and more. The movie does end way before you want it to, implying that part 3 is coming. I absolutely can't wait to see what's going to happen next. This movie's cliffhanger left me pretty anxious, because even though the runtime is like close to 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, I still would have gladly sat for another 2.5 hours just to see what's going to happen next. It really does leave you wanting more. And I really don't know how much more I can say that hasn't already been said, but I will say, this movie hits the nail on the head when it comes to how great a story like this can be told, and how great an animation film can truly be. Honestly, I never understood why people view animation films as not real cinema, but if there's ever any movie to prove them all wrong, it's both Spider-Verse films. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse gets a 9.5 out of 10. So, how would you rank Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Let me know down below. As always, your time is appreciated, and I'll catch you on the next one.